And welcome to this episode of Newsmakers. Joining me in studio, I have Shar Hermanson. She is the president and CEO of Forward Janesville. Shar, welcome.
Thank you for having me today.
Shar is one of those individuals she's a familiar face in the community. You've been around for a while in a handful of different roles, and now you're making a return appearance. Tell us a little bit about how you got here for this particular return appearance.
Sure, I would love to talk about that. So I worked for WCLO, WJVL, and the Janesville Gazette in a variety of sales and leadership roles for 22 years, which was a tremendous experience. And that's where I got to know folks like yourself, that you would come in and be a part of WCLO and do those interviews. And that's where I really gained a strong appreciation of what was happening in local government. It was actually part of our DNA when we worked for WCLO, is we needed to understand what was happening in our community. And some of us took active roles and some of us were just aware of what was going on. From there, I went to Madison for 5 years and worked for Midwest Family Madison. And it was a much larger media company. And I learned some new skills there on business development and growing and changing a business model during COVID, which were skills that are certainly tremendously valuable now, as in my first, I think, 8 weeks, we had a tornado, right, that came through the south side of Janesville. So I had to use our crisis communication skills during that time. And it all leads to where I am now. And the opportunity for the president of Forward Janesville came up, and I felt that I would bring a positive attitude to things and a lot of good work ethic. And being in media for so long, I really feel like I have a talent for taking people of varied opinions and varied skill sets and bringing them together so that we can drive initiatives. So that was my hope.
Well, and when you come from a media background, does that make you better prepared to get into an organization that's literally membership driven, news driven, and it's a different set of challenges and perhaps a different approach, but ultimately the same goal?
Ultimately the same thing, right? At the end of each day in media, especially in radio, we didn't produce a thing. There was not a tangible outcome that came out of our day, save a podcast. Right?
Although the headache once in a while that I have when I leave there is that was produced, and that's tangible to me.
That is tangible to you, yeah. But really, with the radio station, I always felt that we were grabbing businesses and saying, hey, support this communication tool in your community, because what we're doing is a community service. Now, our owners certainly hope to make a profit off of that, a return on their investment, but it's a very mission-driven work, and the people who worked at the Gazette were very mission driven. They certainly, for the most part, were not doing that because they became wealthy people. They did it because they really cared about the community and would invest. You still see them around town, right? You see them at all the events, chipping in, Salvation Army, handing things out. So I'm really proud of coming from the media industry.
I would have to echo that local emphasis that Bliss Communications had in its years with CLO and JVL and the Gazette, and now the new ownership, Big Radio, is very, very committed to community.
Yes.
To the extent that some of the programming that you get from WCLO and JVL is kind of unique to the industry.
Yeah.
With such local emphasis, and that's the topic of another show altogether.
Yep, I was going to say, if we get started on that'll
we'll go on forever.
Yeah,
I want to talk about child care from a policy perspective and how it emerged as being such an important issue to the board of directors at Forward Janesville.
So I joined the organization last June, and Claire was already underway with the Child Care Initiative at that time. So my entrance into the Child Care Initiative is where she had wrapped up the survey, and we were bringing in the providers to understand the needs that they have. And you talked about the convening of providers a little bit, but that is really an important part of this initiative, and I want to talk about that for just a moment. Because during those sessions, Claire does a great job of providing an outline for them of what is on the table to talk about. And it's a very structured conversation so that they feel empowered and that they are now working together to have a voice. So they've had interesting conversations about compensation, education for their employees. They've had great conversations about who is providing what and what is a need that we have in our community. So while they did support the child care directory itself, I think an equally important part is the conversation that they're regularly engaged with, that Forward Janesville is helping to facilitate. And that is really what we are here to do, is to build community and help them solve the problems that are facing our community. So it's really a powerful group.
It's an extremely powerful tool to bring competing interests together to the table.
Absolutely.
And provide them a common goal, common interest.
Yeah.
And then find ways to channel that energy into creative solutions to the problems that we all face. It's that basic concept of deliberative democracy that has so many different applications in so many different settings, and it's good to see Forward Janesville embracing that approach. That's helpful. Childcare, you've started the conversation from the big picture perspective. You put this directory together, it's out there and it's available. Where do you go from here with it?
The important thing about a directory is that you are bringing everyone together in the same space. And from a marketing standpoint, that's a tremendous asset for Janesville. So as we have our policy priority areas and we can come up with content that we can publish, and we learned so many great lessons when we worked through the school referendums about providing information to the community and people coming to our website to get information. So now we have the same opportunity with the child care directory. And what that does is it helps to, behind the scenes, right, in the Google world, it links everyone together so that when people are looking at our community as a place that they maybe could relocate to, or industry is looking at Janesville as a place to move, they see this cooperative effort on childcare, and then they become more curious because that same tool might not be available in another community that they're looking at.
Sure. And that takes me to the next part of the conversation, and that happens to be the business retention and expansion survey that you do on a fairly regular basis, but with each time you do it, there's a new set of findings that take you down a different path, perhaps.
Yeah.
Tell us about the most recent business retention and expansion survey.
So that was something that the board of directors in Forward Janesville has taken on. And what I learned is that other communities will hire an outside consultant and they'll go in to do these interviews. The approach we had in Janesville is we worked with our board of directors because these are people who work in business, they know people in the community. So our interviews were very expansive. Many of the interviews went an hour, hour and a half, and people talked to us about why they're here in Janesville, what do they want to drive, changes or obstacles they have to growing or expanding their business. And from that, we were able to set the board priorities for Forward Janesville. It was interesting that the board priorities that were set after the survey truly were the same priorities we had before the survey was generated. It's just that we have more data to back that up now. Tanner Voss was the one who led the Business Retention Expansion Survey with BMO Bank, and he was able to secure many interviews and give us great insight because he works with the manufacturing community, which is our largest employer, right? From that, we found that there were 3 things that we're noticing are barriers for expansion in our community. Number 1 is housing. So as housing has become a topic, it's interesting, when we identified housing, our thoughts were, how will we get people excited about housing? It's not necessarily a topic that people will spend time, leave their living room to go to a meeting to talk about housing. Well, now we have an opportunity to talk more about it. So from an employer standpoint, there's 3 things that happen. Is workforce housing, right? So they want to grow and expand their workforce, and they need housing that's available that people can quickly come into. When we're trying to recruit somebody, you want them to move to the market. Those employees have choices. They don't have to come to Janesville. They can go somewhere else, right? So the housing that we offer has to be appealing to them so that they want to take this job, because jobs are plentiful and they're competitive offers. So housing is a very big piece of that. There's another piece of it that we discovered through the survey, which is the executive housing. So it's an interesting thing to note that many of our executives have been unable to find housing in Janesville. So therefore, they're commuting to Janesville. So I can tell you personally that when I worked in Madison for 5 years, I would commute to Madison. So I didn't grocery shop in Madison. I didn't participate in after-work activities for the most part, maybe an after-5 event. But I left and I went back to the community that I was from, and that's where I spent the bulk of my money. So as we look at the economic profile of Janesville, being able to recruit those individuals to move to our community is a large opportunity for us moving forward. And then, of course, we have low-income housing, which needs to be there to provide. I just met with some folks in education recently, and they talked about a lot of our population is a parent and a significant other and 2 kiddos. And if it's a significant other, that significant other might not be committed to that household. So when that significant other maybe exits the situation, the parent is left carrying the financial burden for the household and all the activities. So that speaks to quality of life for those kids, right?
Absolutely. And part of that population that needs that housing is also the entry-level teachers and the entry-level firefighters and the entry-level police officers that we need to find housing for. So housing is a huge priority. We've got a couple of minutes left. In that couple of minutes, tell me, where do you go with these issues? We've started to identify them. What are your next steps? How do you get from issue identification to problem solving?
So we engage UW Whitewater already, and we did a housing study, and that study was on Rock County. And when we did a soft launch to some stakeholders, we really found that needs to come down and be just a Janesville study, because we're getting the smaller communities in Rock County involved. So we're going to redeploy that particular survey. And then as we had a Rise Now, right, we had a plan for downtown Janesville, and that has been a plan that's been celebrating its 10th anniversary this year. We really feel bringing stakeholders together to work on a housing plan for the community, because when Janesville has a plan and we have a lot of stakeholders behind that plan, we see tremendous results. Yes. So we are in the process of setting that up. That takes a little bit of time. We'd rather take a moment to get people involved, get feedback, then launch something out quickly and miss opportunities or missteps.
That goes hand in hand with that prudent idea that comes from the business community that the best way forward is often to spend some time doing some careful planning and then do the execution part, but base it on a plan. It sounds like you're at the beginnings of saying, you know, we're almost ready for a housing summit in the community where we can talk through these issues and find collective solutions across all of the stakeholders to problems we'll collectively share.
A summit would be a tactic, right? So if we have a strategy, that broad strategy would talk about a variety of tactics that might be deployed. So a summit would be a tactic that would be a part of a larger strategy.
And certainly something on the table that needs to be, as a tactic, it's an issue that needs to be addressed. Housing, there's other barriers, and we could spend a lot of time talking about what you've identified in the business retention and expansion survey, because it's not just housing. There's a lot of barriers that make it difficult. And, well, we're going to run out of time doing it, so let's make a promise to you. We'll have you back again to have another conversation.
Sounds great.
Shar Hermanson, she is the president and CEO of Forward Janesville. And, well, Shar, thanks. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
That's going to do it for this version of Newsmakers. Stay tuned. Coming up down the road, well, we'll have some surprises for you. This is another product of the Rock County Civics Academy. Have a great day.